tried. He didn't want to ask me to borrow money. So he called me and asked me if I would buy his boots. $500. If I would buy his police boots. $500. Because he's trying to make up money to pay his medical bills. I asked him, what's going on with your insurance? What's going on with the police insurance plan? Nothing like that do exist. Our police officers have no medical insurance. Our police officers have zero medical plan. I called Gary Griffith. I said, tell me this officer lying to me. Tell me he's trying a smart thing. Gary said, nope. I tried to put one in place and the cabinet rejected. So our police officers who leave their homes and their families, their wives, their husbands, their children, and they go out to put their lives at risk for strangers, if they get injured in the line of duty, it's them to catch with their own bill. If you get shot and you live, it takes months, sometimes years of rehabilitation. People don't know that because they're accustomed to seeing what gunshot look like in the movies. But that's not the point. I gave him $500 so that I could take these boots. So I could use these boots as a symbol. Trinidad and Tobago, that's a pair of a policeman boots who had to sell his boots to get $500 to help pay his medical bills. Now you tell me if any of that is right. If this is not hateful, spiteful, heartless governance in this country. Police officers cannot engage in industrial action. Police officers cannot strike. Police officers cannot down tools by law. So they're stuck. They just get a 4% at a time where the cost of living went up 100% twice. The government has a responsibility to our police officers. I will deal with this specifically. Don't tell me about fire officers. Don't tell me about Coast Guard. Don't tell me about nobody else. I want to deal with one. Help me deal with one. This is what I'm asking Trinidad and Tobago to do. To stand with me, to insist that the government put with immediate effect medical insurance facilities in place for all of our police officers. 1. 2. That either you remove the law that says they can't engage in industrial action, or you immediately peg their increases. You immediately peg their increases to the cost of living and inflation. Simple maths. Government responsible for controlling inflation. Government could control inflation, but if it goes out of control, raise essential servants' salaries in step, because they can't protest and they can't down tools. But the reason for this video is we are trying to help this man. He have about $50,000 in medical bills and he needs help. He's a good and decent guy. You all know me. I don't put my mouth in things for just any and everybody. This is a good and decent guy. And he needs help. Satish Ramsaran has set up a FundMe account specifically for him. And you could WhatsApp Satish at 796-8172 and Satish will send you the link. If they redo this video to send out on WhatsApp, they will probably include a link on it. If you are watching this on my Facebook page as a live, even if you watch it as a rerun, there should be a link in the thread, in the comments of this, for you to get the link to pay $10, $100, $1,000 to help this gentleman, because I'd like to help him. And if you can't reach Satish on 796-8172, you could WhatsApp my assistant's line 702-PHIL, 702-PHIL. And if neither of those work, you could of course WhatsApp me on 682-2110 and say I would like to make a contribution. I know there are good people outside there who will see this and this will pull at their heartstrings, because this gentleman have a young daughter and a family, and I want to see us as a country do right by each other. I want to help him, but I want to use his case to help all the other police officers, men and women, who put their lives on the line for this country every day. When Trinidadians want to wash their mouth on police and talk about, oh, they corrupt, oh, they just take bribe, oh, they always looking for extra duty, you see why? We paying them crap. They just give them a 4% increase that should have been a 40% increase just to keep up with the price of bread and flour and water rates and tea and tech, because they have the same bills you have. They can't strike. We, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, need to stand by our police officers. If you want a good and decent and honest police force, make sure that they are paid properly so that they could live. And in cases like this, that they could get a medical plan so that when they need help, they could get some help. 7968172, Satish. 702 Phil, my assistant. 682-2110 to WhatsApp me. Let's help this guy. Thanks for your support. We're back inside. I'm here with Stephen Matheson, Industrial Relations Consultant. He is an expert on the matter. Grocery prices in Trinidad and Tobago have increased by 60% since 2015. Fuel by 130%. They intend to increase electricity by 65%, and there is a bill before the RIC to increase water by 100%. They offered and gave police officers a 4% increase on work that was done from 2014 coming forward. Stephen Matheson, two issues on the table. I raised two issues in that video. The first and the really important one, because we come back to the issue of the wages and the increase, but the issue of medical. I want you to be able to hear this. This is a real statistic that you could check. The number one cause of homelessness in America is a medical bill. Why don't our police officers have a proper medical insurance plan?
Well, the answer to that is, I don't know. Usually those things are a product of the collective bargaining agreement, and the police service has a police service association, and that police service association is really responsible for negotiating on police officers' behalf terms and conditions and that kind of thing. Because while they are essential services workers, there are negotiations that take place within the rank and file, and it is not always only left up to the government or the leadership of the police service, but they have people representing them who could answer those questions on their behalf.
So you say that medical insurance should be part of the bargaining process, the collective bargaining process.
In most cases it is.
Since that video came out, I have been approached by senior police officers who are trying to explain the system that exists to me about how officers access medical. There is something called the police hospital in the barracks, and I have also been told, now it's a funny situation, because I could have filled this room today with police officers who are willing to speak on this issue, but as you know, a lot of our essential workers and a lot of people in Trinidad and Tobago, a lot of people who work for the state in Trinidad and Tobago are gagged. They're not allowed to speak. So a very senior officer is today, we spoke this morning, because this was on Synergy TV with Stephen Reese this morning. Gary Griffith was the guest, and he again said that police officers have no medical plan. Now, this issue is a very serious issue because police can't respond to an emergency and reach by the door and look inside and say, hey, you think they have asbestos in there? Police can't stop. They are assaulted by, besides the violence of their job and the potential for massive violence and injury, the environmental consequences of some of the places they have to go. They don't get time to stop and turn on a meter to see what is the environment they're going into. We and the state have a responsibility to protect them as they age, the stresses of the job, that there should be a medical insurance card that a police officer could pull out at the closest public or private hospital and put it down on the counter and be attended to.
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, police officers aren't the only essential workers in Trinidad and Tobago, and there are other essential workers like teachers, for instance. They have medical negotiated in their collective agreement. In some cases, I know for one, teachers are at the moment engaged in negotiation for that. And I always say that when collective bargaining time comes around, one of the things, instead of just looking for more increases, you can get those increases through benefits, and those benefits sometimes includes pension and medical and that kind of thing. So it is a combination of a number of things that police officers could avail of themselves of through negotiation, right? But I hear you and I agree with you that certain essential services workers need the government maybe should pay more cognizance to their well-being in terms of their health and safety.
But the parliament does that for themselves. The government does that for themselves. They make sure that they are cared for, that they have all of their insurances in place and their tax breaks. They take care of themselves. And I want to say to you, so I want to segue from that to this. Because police officers, all right, now in my video I said, let's focus only on police officers. David, we taking calls? If you could run the number on a ticker tape on the screen, because use my phone, 682-2110, and we could have people who are essential workers especially call in and raise your issue, because I'm being bombarded. Fire, prisons, teachers, doctors, nurses, they are all suffering. And being garbage collectors, the people who work in the waste management industry and the landfills, these people are all suffering to make ends meet. Inflation and the cost of living has left them far behind. They are on 2013, 2014 salaries, and the cost of living, the cost of groceries in this country has gone up 60%. Those costs, we tracking groceries, we tracking fuel, we tracking electricity and water, but those costs has had an ancillary knock-on effect on school fees and on the price of books and
insurance, personal insurance, everything. And the thing is, at the end of the day, I mean, if you don't have it in your collective agreement, you don't have it in your workplace, you don't have it, nobody's paying it, but you're getting a salary, sickness and thing is something that is going to come at some point in time. And the longer you wait to buy things like insurance and things, the more expensive it's going to get for you when you're ready to do it. So at some point in time, you still have to consider putting aside a little something for that, because the reality is they're not giving it.
No, but you see, the reality is, and this is an issue. Now I'm gonna put this on the table. You could disassociate yourself from what I'm about to say, and I will be okay with that. But it seems that unions in this country no longer adequately represent the real needs of workers in Trinidad and Tobago.
I see that all the time. I agree with you 100% on that. negotiation in Trinidad and Tobago is really a fad. The thing is, on both sides, on the employer side and the union side, they seem not to understand the real value of negotiation. Is a rare thing for them. The thing is, you had to think, and what is important for workers, and for the employer, what is important for you? You want productivity, right? And workers want more security, more benefits. In some cases, more money. Well, let's negotiate. If I could get productivity for that, I'll give you that. Because if my workforce is healthy and happy, then I will get more productivity ultimately.
Say it again.
Right?
Say that again. Say that again for the cheap seats. That is the
it's not just the cheap seats, it's the union too. The union had to understand that too. So it's a give and take. And the problem is, which is why like places like Barbados a couple of years ago with the tripartite system, we does not understand that it's not about a rare thing. It's about common sense, negotiation.
But when you said just now that productivity is key, you are negotiating, you on the other side. The workers are putting forward their collective requests. But you have to tailor those requests and peg it to productivity.
Well, yeah, it's a scientific thing, and most of them don't even understand that. It's a scientific thing. We could work out our costs as an employer.
Per pound, per inch, per mile.
Everything.
We could work.
And if we could work that out, then we must know. You must know that your salary is maybe about 8% or 9% or 10% of your cost. So you must know what you should be based on your profit margin, what you could afford to pay, how much more you could afford to pay, and what more you could demand.
But those
because one of the things for some reason in state enterprise we seem not to negotiate for is productivity. And at the same time, people sometimes expect that as cost of living go up, they get more money and that kind of thing. But it's always something for something, and if you're getting more, you have to be willing to give more, to give something that commensurates with what you think you should be getting. And that is the responsibility of the trade union, as it is the responsibility of the employer or the government.
Okay, but if the trade union has made itself redundant,
but I'll tell you something. The trade union listening to this will say that we will do what we have to do, and our job is not to do that. Our job is to negotiate for our workers on our side. If they want to negotiate for that on their side, they could do that. But for some reason, they're not.
But you're right. It's a fight. It's not a negotiation.
There's
a difference between a negotiation and a fight. There's a difference between an argument and a fight. We fight. So every time we see any industrial action being taken and we hear from the unions, is always beat a drum and threaten, instead of having conversations like, and you said it just now, wages as a percentage of the cost of doing business is inescapable. What you as business owner or management want to do is maximize what you get in return for those wages. Yes?
Right. So both parties will come to the bargaining table. The employer will come with their lowest offering. The union will start at the highest, at what they want, and then it will go down until it balances. Sometimes the union will have a ceiling for which they will stop at. The employer also will have a ceiling at which they will stop at and not go. And then at that point, if nobody is agreeing, you will have what is called a breakdown in a negotiation. Now the thing is, I see negotiation in the 21st century, what it should be is a more common sense thing, right? Let us work out what is living wage, and let us work out what is productivity. And if we could understand that, and I'm talking more so for the government, because to me, the government probably have the poorest negotiation tactics in terms of, I hear you saying it all the time. I hear people saying it all the time. You go in places like licensing office and all these places, and you see people lunchtime, the place closed, customs place closed 2 o'clock. Nobody working. You sit down for hours waiting on workers, and you're seeing everybody walking around. And is that productivity? And what is productivity for the government? And how do you measure because against what you are willing to pay and what you pay?
But you see, and I don't want to go too far down the side street, but you raise a good point there. And lost man hours to the state is a massive issue. Lost man hours. If people have to take a whole day to go to do a transaction at licensing office, the state is losing there.
Right, and that's a different thing too.
But I'm saying if those are also public servants, or it affects the economy.
Yeah, everything affects. Is a cyclical, revolving, dynamic thing.
Traffic affects the economy.
Everything.
To the point where in Germany and other countries in Europe now, they are paying you your salary from the time you board the train.
Mm-hmm.
So if your commute is 2 hours a day, you're getting paid for your commute.
Yeah.
Because the Supreme Court has said that the commute.
So now you have a vested interest in ensuring that you have a good traffic management system that takes care, that ensures that people reach work on time and that kind of thing.
Our politics fails us because politically we do not have these conversations.
We don't.
So as you say, everything as you step back further and further to a greater and greater macro view, you realize all of it is rara, bacchanal, and noise.
Yeah. So the sum of everything is common sense, is critical thinking, is a system where you have strategic thinking.
Goal-oriented, you build your plans around the goal.
Yes, and the whole, so I remember some time ago we had a show during COVID, and I was saying, I think it was, not Martin Daly, it was old PNM politician, Montano. And I was saying that maybe we should start running the country like a business. And he was saying, no, you can't run the country like a business. Well, he didn't understand what I meant by that. What I always say is that, I like to think strategic. And if everything begins in a real solid, profitable company, they run that company with a vision, a mission, and strategic objectives. And I feel Trinidad and Tobago has never had a strategic plan. Never. Vision 20 wasn't that. But we've never had a plan which streamlines every single process into one vision, mission, and strategic objective.
Correct. And we've come at this statement from multiples of fronts, but everything leads us back to the same point. The well-being of the citizenry is the function of government. The collective citizenry. So you have to start using terms like quality of life. The quality of life in Trinidad is bad. It is not good. We have a high fear index in Trinidad. Fear. We have a high expectation of abuse, corruption, mismanagement. We do not trust the government. We do not trust law enforcement. Law enforcement has no reason to engage, to improve that scenario, because law enforcement is made up of workers who feel like the state and the collective and the public don't understand their position. So everybody, like a bad marriage, everybody holding their corner. And instead of us having conversations about how do we get to a place where the quality of life in Trinidad and Tobago improves dramatically, increasing consistently.
But I just give you the answer.
No,
the answer is...
But I'm saying that you need everybody in that conversation.
The answer is sensible governance, right? So when government change, or ever so often, when government change, you have the Ministry of Works, the Ministry of Labour, each ministry doing what is called a strategic plan, but operating in silos.
Correct.
So the thing is, even the professionals, because I've sat on a couple of them, even the professionals who are doing it know that is nonsense. The reason is because it just can't work. It will not work when you take into consideration the bureaucracy that it has to go through for all the things. As a professional, you want to impute.
So that's the conundrum.
So
we're all trapped by the same failure, and that's why we're failing.
So the thing is, as I said, what we need is one plan, like real countries do, like Germany and all the other countries. One plan with a long-term vision, not a 5-year vision, a long-term vision as to where we were, like China, what we want to do down the road, where we want to be and get there, right? With one plan. That is what we need in
I'll give you an example. Iceland used to import all of its oil and gas. All Iceland. Iceland is now the first country in the world that is 100% renewable energy. 100%. I was watching a documentary on that. As a goal, Iceland said, we set it as a goal to achieve by a deadline. Panama, pretty much Panama's only business is the Panama Canal. That is Panama's business. They are the most important waterway on the planet. That's how they earn their revenue. Panama anticipated when the shipping companies started to talk about increasing the size of the ships. Panama anticipated working with their deadlines. Panama engaged to double the size of the canal.
The canal, yes.
So they invested in doubling the size of the canal, and now that there are ships,
and they are making about 10 times that now. Because shipping has gone up tremendously, all because of that is one of the reasons.
Now that Iceland has 100% renewable energy, the importation of fossil fuels is no longer a line item in their budget. These are the important things that identify first world status. What does that mean? Ask Singapore, ask Dubai, look at Qatar.
So we sit down and we just play on all these nice words and these
buzzwords
and all these
buzzwords.
What we're doing, and this is all these strategic objectives, and this is what we're doing. Listen, you know, long I hear about digitized economy in Trinidad. I was one of the first person who talked to before he became Prime Minister, sometime in 2012 or 2013, about a system where we are one card system, where we have a truly digitized system. And his exact words to me at that meeting that night was that will not happen because we wouldn't get support from the opposition.
But look at this, you know.
And the thing is, everything happens in Trinidad and Tobago in silos. So you're building an infrastructure, but it doesn't take into consideration. You still don't know who are the people that need it, because you have not been able to capture them in your data set, in your research, and your nothing.
Continue, because I'm gonna make a point for you. We have how many RHAs we have in Trinidad and Tobago?
You know, some time ago we were on the show, Selvon and I and a couple of us, we were talking about the amount of duplication we have in services, right? So you remember when we had Jude long time?
Yep.
You know, that still exists in a kind of way, right? But the people what Jude was set up for, URP was set up to do the same thing. Regional Corporation set up to do the same thing. CPEP now set up to do the same thing. And that is what you have right through government with everything. So you're just paying more money. You have all these different set of special purpose companies and that kind of thing. Set up to bypass the bureaucracy in the system. When really the 41 or they could sit down and fix that.
I don't want to interrupt you, but you see, you're making points, and I'm making notes. If I could show
the 41 or you could sit down.
Watch this.
And fix that.
On RFET Avenue, a private company, Unicom, has been given the contract to fix the sidewalks. That institutionally, the City Corporation, URP, CPEP, Local Government Ministry, or Ministry of Works, all have the tools and the manpower and the funding to handle.
And also
that was the function of the Port of Spain City Corporation.
Exactly.
Why is it a private contract to Unicom?
They will say that the corporation is not doing it. But if the corporation is not doing it, then why have a corporation?
But on Chagrit Road, Mokarapo Road, the corporation's doing there.
So maybe
so why is this contract on RPT?
You know, I was looking at a video last night, strangely, with talking about Petrotrin and why Petrotrin was closed down by this Abood guy, and that is indicative of, you know, how government runs and the things they do and say to you, the lies they tell you sometimes when they feel you're not looking and thinking, and how it affects you down the road. Because nothing that gentleman was saying was not true. He was making a lot of sense. It is how government work in Trinidad and Tobago. Government works not for you, for the people who could give them kickbacks, who could give them more money in the pocket. Unfortunately, that is how it works. So everything they do, really, all the nice hairy-fairy ideas that you hear them come up with, in most cases, it have a man that they done earmark in the back there to put a couple millions in the pocket to do that, you know.
David, take this information, right? This is to make a point, and I just went and I researched it again. So this is why it doesn't work. This is how it's set up to fail. There is a complete lack of communication to begin with. We have Trinidad is 5 regional health authorities. It is 9 police divisions. It is 41 constituencies. It is 15 regional corporations. That cannot create a seamless exchange of information focused on plan, measurables, deliverables, goals. Those are the important words, and we hear them in all of the conversations. We see them in all of the manifestos and all of the visions.
Yeah,
but
it's to know some way.
But they never flesh it out. They never flesh it out. They never say that if you are going to build 110,000 houses because you have a demand for 10,000 houses, what is your timelines? What is your deliverables? And how does that money come back into the treasury? At what time do we come full circle and compensate for it? The Progressive Empowerment Party proposes to abolish the RHAs and the police 9 division model, and the regional corporations abolish that. Local government as a system that they entrenching now does not work. And we propose the creation of something called the Constituency Board of Supervisors. And a Constituency Board of Supervisors in all 41 constituencies would do this job better, because all constituencies get budgeted at budget time.
Yeah, well, Phillip.
Let me just flesh this point, because if I leave it hanging, they're going to ask questions on the live. They get budgeted, all of this gets budgeted at budget time, but nobody knows how to track where that money going. But if you know that you have a Constituency Board of Supervisors for each constituency, so that each of the 41 constituencies run like a mini state, that they have a supervisor for public works, public utilities, health, education, and national security, that within that one
they collect
constituency,
their own taxes, they pay their own salaries, they do everything,
and they're responsible for the quality of life within the
boundary,
within the boundaries of that constituency. That is measurable. That is measurable, because if you know at budget time that you've been approved $800 million, and there is a breakdown of what that $800 million spend is for, where security and public utilities and public works and health and education is concerned, that is documented as part of a budget. A budget would no longer take 2 hours, it might take 4 days. But you in your constituency will have a better idea of what is to be spent in your constituency, what could be developed and delivered within the next 12 calendar months, so that you could know what roads, what bridges. Somebody just wrote me about the Orange Grove Bridge that being repaired 5 years now. You can't be repairing a bridge 5 years now. That's our reality. And I don't want to go too far from where we are. But you said it just now. All of these things are tied to the overall vision for your country. What is the goal for Trinidad and Tobago this year? A budget. And we spoke that at budget time. A budget is a document that gives you an idea of what the country is going to accomplish in the next 12 months.
What they're going to spend money on in the next 12 months, how they're going to allocate resources in the next 12 months.
But for what?
Kind of thing.
Those things matter. So when you say make things make a list of what the country wants to be and how it wants to get there, that needs to be broken down into deliverables on a timeline that is measurable. That is what we do not do. And because we do not do this, because we say
No, they will tell you to do it, you know. They will tell you that they ask all the ministries to present the plans and the budget and all the technocrats to present all the strategic plans and that kind of thing. But what happens when they do that? The answer is nothing. They just run the country the way they plan to run it.
But if you
and in most cases, how they think it should be run. but we're seeing the effects of that. We see now the roads, the state of the roads, we see the state of the waterways, we see the water, electricity, everything.
And exactly, and you can't give them an out. If you say 5 billion this year is for education, you should be pressed in that budget to tell me what is $5 billion for education mean? What is it spent on?
But listen. Again, and one of the, you see, I kind of like Selvon idea with the way government runs is he have it real good. The thing is, we sometimes give credit to the wrong set of people and not hold the right set of people responsible for what's supposed to happen. Really, the public servants are the ones who are held with the responsibility to run the country, the state. The government, the government makes plans through cabinet, and they allocate monies and that kind of thing, and they will tell you that, and they would have allocated those monies on the basis of what was given to them by the technocrats and the plans the technocrats had, and then they have little control. They will tell you that, that is Selvon's thesis. They have little control as to how that is utilized after that. In terms of what the public servant, servants.
You can't just say that the public servant responsible. And this is the problem I have with that statement every time. It's like getting into a taxi and telling them go where you want, let me know when we reach. That's not how it works. If you say that you want the public servants to deliver something in the 12 months of the budget year, because let's use the budget document. Let's break governance in Trinidad and Tobago down to 12-month chunks of governance so that you could measure what is happening. Because you end up with a government in office for 5 years and they come in there and they tell you water for all, and at the end of 5 years nothing happened. Because all along the way, and private sector management requires you to say, if you are going to switch out from metal pipes to plastic pipes, you have to tell me first month, first quarter, first month, second quarter, first month, third quarter, where should we be along the line of this plan?
Yeah, because private sectors have boards of directors who you have to answer to, and you have to be able to say who have to say where the money coming from and how the money coming.
10% of the budget. Have you achieved 10% of the goal? You have to be able to measure that. Who in Trinidad and Tobago measures that? Come back to what we started talking about with the salaries. If groceries is 60% increase, then you have to realistically tell yourself, groceries went up, fuel went up 100 and something percent. So you have to tell yourself that 60% is your mark. That 60% is your mark. And if people have been working under those salaries since 2014 and groceries have gone up 60%, and you give people a 4% increase, what you've effectively done is given them a 56% pay cut. Their salaries, their real money in their pocket, could accomplish 56% less than it was doing in 2013. Because the price of the food that it wants to buy has increased 60%, and you are giving them 4%. You understand the point I'm making?
Yeah, but in all fairness, the price, the inflation is not necessarily a product of the way the government run the country. It is not necessarily that. It has a lot to do with international prices and things, changes in the international market with a lot of things, and as a result, we are really a consumer economy. A banana republic. We buy everything.
Yeah, but
we hardly sell everything. We hardly sell anything.
Okay, but you've sat here and we've spoken about just the agriculture sector. We've spoken about that enough times to show.
So good.
So one of our goals.
So that's
when you're making your list of goals: renewable energy, literacy, develop first world, food self-sufficient should be okay. So you can't say, but you can't just. But you just said it's not a function of how the government runs the country, but it's a function. Listen, all of these companies, Ernst and Young and them, these companies, they are paid handsomely to engage in modeling. What happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? And they're supposed to provide you with options for planning, so that you know that if
so the government will call Ernest and Young, or they will call Stephen Matheson or somebody and tell them to give them a plan, but they don't use it. It makes no sense to them. It's like giving a pig. It's like giving a pig sponge cake. It doesn't work for them. They're not going to use it. They'll just spend money for it because they can't use it.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying to you,
the system does not allow them to use it.
In your zeal to excuse the government, its responsibility.
No, I'm not excusing them.
You just said, and you're saying, and I agree with you, that there will be external factors, but it is government's job to anticipate. Now, I'm not saying earthquake, hurricane, pandemic. Fine. Earthquake, hurricane, pandemic. And for those who don't know, you're supposed to have a hurricane plan and an earthquake plan and a pandemic plan. You're supposed to, because your country's supposed to survive it. Not so? You are supposed to say, a storm is coming, put these things in place, trigger these, turn this on, mobilize this, turn this off, that sort of thing. That's a plan. You have to have plans. You can't be running like a headless chicken because a storm coming or because an earthquake hit. You have to have a response plan immediately to move forward.
Okay, but Philip, you had to understand also that we don't live in a vacuum. We don't live in a pond by yourself, isolated from the world. If you look at what's happening globally, right, with weather patterns and that kind of thing, what we experiencing in Trinidad is like chalk and cheese to what happened in some other places right close to us. I just say.
Yeah.
So the thing is, while we are small country, one of the things I agree with you 100% on is that the kind of resources we had in Trinidad and Tobago, we shouldn't be having any kind of problems that we have in today, because we should have had a lot more in terms of infrastructure to deal with certain kind of things. But at the same time, it's not magic. And what is happening in most cases, is act of God. We have no control over it.
I can't let you say that it is not magic for people to think that that is what I am suggesting. I am not suggesting. I want to ask you a question. I'm going to put a word on the table. I want you to tell me if you've ever heard this word before. The word is contingency.
Yes.
Contingency.
Yes, contingency.
So that you know that in planning,
sometimes you plan for things that may come, but more for things that may come that or may not come.
So you plan for contingencies. That's government's job, right? Plan for contingencies. If tomorrow all the taxi drivers strike, what's your contingency? What you're triggering, you have to have a response. You need to have a plan. You can't take a phone call and say, oh God, what are we going to do now? The purpose of the planning is to prepare.
It's like the jokest thing I heard the other day, and I laugh. When they had the flood on the highway, and the government said they didn't open the bus route because the police didn't tell them to open the bus chute. And I started to laugh because to me the bus chute, the responsibility for the bus chute is the Ministry of Works, right? Yeah.
I've been reminded to remind the audience that on the 15th of December, this show will be a Citizens Union year in review. You're invited to sit on that panel with Felicia Holder, Ian Griffith, and myself, as well as you, and some people who have had some very incredible responses from the Citizens Union and rescues, and we want you to tune into that because it will explain to you a lot of the work that's going on, and it comes back to what we're saying. Because behind the scenes, Stephen, behind the scenes of all of it has to be an organization that is capable of managing it. You cannot be driving a boat in rough sea and not have a plan. You must know what you're doing. You mentioned the impact of global warming, but we've been talking global warming since the 90s.
But for the most part, the countries, the more industrialized countries, will be countries that contributes most to the carbon footprint. And
they are not going down that road. I'm just saying,
and
okay,
to
use
a
this.
large extent, we talking global warming and climate change and what we're doing for it. But this is
not really global warming. This is El Nino, is a stalled ITCZ. We see these things. And the meteorological office could tell you they've had weather patterns like this in 1898. We have history we could look at. So we're supposed to be able to do preparation. We're supposed to be able to say, when you build the North-South Highway and you ask the Met Office, we are going to connect the south of the country to the north of the country. I want you to tell me what is the worst amount of rain we've ever had in this country causing a flood. Give me it by cubic volume so that I could double it again and create retention ponds. In the United States of America, and I know this for a fact because we're trying to get involved in a development there. When you propose to do a development and you're removing the ground cover, they work out for you that ground cover could absorb a certain amount of rain at its worst. Beyond that, it will be too much and it will flood. So you have a responsibility through your drainage, surface drainage and retention facilities to be able to manage that amount of rainfall. You have about 3 phones today. You have to be able to manage. And I want the audience to understand that happens. That is what you need to be able to do. If they tell you that on this per acre, 500 gallons an hour is what you have to be able to manage. You need to draw it away from the surface so it doesn't run off. What we get in Trinidad is all of the surface runoff water collecting in the lowest point and then growing from there and making a pool. What happens was the Caroni River was not dredged. The mouth of the Caroni River was not dredged. There's a sandbar so that the water filled up in the Caroni River like a bathtub. So it overflowed into the country because it wasn't allowed to wash out into the sea. These are important issues that cannot be swept under the rug. But we continue to do that and say, well, boy, global warming. And I'm not saying that they aren't.
Everybody have responsibility. And for some reason, people just don't do what the ministries don't do what they're supposed to do. The technocrats in the ministry not doing. There's no checks and balance. Nobody's held responsible for anything in Trinidad and Tobago, and that's the problem.
It's a pervading.
So if you look at how the U.S. is, imagine a U.S. president could be held to account.
Whether they arrest the president of Peru yesterday.
Yes, and
sitting president,
and 2 others in prison.
But they arrest a sitting president for trying to turn the constitution into a dictatorship.
Yes, and the thing is,
I was going to give you another example of the Millennium Bug. If you put aside global warming, when they knew that there was a chance that computers could fail coming to the year 2000, they put contingencies in place. They had contingencies in place to manually override nuclear reactors and the electric grid to keep the traffic lights working and the water pumping. These are important things, Stephen. These are important things. And we need a government that is capable of identifying where we're going as a people. That is based on feedback and leadership. We're not engaging in either. We're engaging in bacchanal and noise. Every time you hear politicians speak, is dig your finger in the eye and pull the hair. It have nothing to do with where the people want to go and where we can go, and how do we align those two into where we're really going to go as a country.
Right, and that's unfortunate, because I always say, I don't know, sometimes I get the impression that I listen to you. I listen to all the things you say that you want to do if you get in office and that kind of thing. But most of the things you want to do, you don't only have to get in office to do it. You know? You have to get in office with a special majority to do it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And in this climate, nobody again in office with a special majority just so.
And I want to say,
so the problem
but that's up to Trinidadians though, eh?
But yeah, that's up to
Trinidadians have to decide if they want that vision, your vision.
Yeah.
If they want your vision for labor relations, let's put that on the table. Let's say we're talking about pegging essential workers' salaries to inflation. Would you get on board with that?
Listen, I'll get on board with anything. Let me tell you something. You know what? You know one of the things I say, and I say this to industrial relations people, I say this to judges. We talk this every day. You've had in the last 10 years or so, or 15 years or so, about 3 or 4 persons who came from the labor movement, who sat as ministers of labor. And one of the reasons why we have a crazy industrial relations systems is because of that Industrial Relations Act. It really does not work for employees nor employer. There are so many things that are just bad in that act that needs to be changed. And you had union people. Let me tell you something. There's a board called the RRCBA, the Recognition and Certification Board. That board is the board that if, let's say, a matter is reported for a worker under Section 51, and the employer comes and questions the status of the worker, either the worker in good standing or the worker has not been a worker, that matter, the ministry automatically refers the matter to that board. But that board is usually constituted by persons, the government constitutes that board by persons who are labor people for the most part. And maybe some from industry and things. You know that board is without, that board is without a board right now?
So anything
so anything a company refers, and companies use it to the advantage. So a worker will have a problem, a worker have a genuine issue, right? And an employer or a lawyer or somebody come and refer that worker going to languish. So though you telling me you have people who come out of the labor movement who sitting as minister of labor and that kind of thing.
So they have nothing in industrial relations, in the industrial court like a habeas corpus. A judge cannot call it back from there.
I don't know of
but
any.
You could sue the state for that.
Listen.
If the state
but that's just one. There are so many bad things about the act that doesn't work for the worker and doesn't work for the employer either.
I want to say to you, if you speak to lawyers, senior lawyers, ex-directors of public prosecutions, even former judges, they will tell you that one of the things that Trinidad and Tobago desperately needs to do is overhaul its laws.
Crazy.
Our laws, plenty of our laws, if you challenge them, you'd have to rubbish them, especially in the current
rubbish. Man getting locked up for obscene language. All kind of everybody use obscene language whole day, every day. Police, everybody. You locking up a man for obscene language.
A police officer just messaged to say thank you to the team for they say without you all we have no voice. The association does nothing for us, and you could read this comment and say a police officer just messaged you. Thank you for your voice. I want to bring it back to that. Because I want to ask you, because essential workers like police officers, teachers, well, no, not teachers, police officers.
Teachers are essential services.
Nurses. Because they can't engage in industrial action. Shouldn't it then be the responsibility of the state to peg their increases to inflation? Because, and I'm saying this, even though you think otherwise, the people with the most power to manage inflation is the state. The state has the most power to manage inflation. I'll give you an example. We spoke about this. We have a wheat-based diet in Trinidad, but we don't grow wheat here. So somebody had to introduce wheat to Trinidad and convince all of the different races.
You just be talking this. We talk this all the time.
I know, but I'm just saying that, right?
And the thing is,
using it as a point. Using it as a point, so that we could always come back to this, that something has to be done, and if you begin the process,
you think it's a plan, boy? Why agriculture and thing is not on the giving the most allocation that I mean. What's the reason why you wouldn't see agriculture as a real important food?
But it's greed.
Food as a real important thing. Is it that you just want to continue the people who just spending all the foreign reserves out of to buy food and bring all kind of things in the country that killing your citizens and increasing your health bill and all that kind of thing? So you're not thinking.
Good day, sir. I'm listening to your live at the moment, and I only hope that when you say police officer, I hope you highlight SRP too, because it is SRP has nothing. When I mean nothing, no benefits, as when the time is up to go home, no pension, no gratuity, nothing. They work just as Trinidad and Tobago police, but with nothing as Trinidad and Tobago police. Whether it be full-time SRP or part-time SRP. Now, if you read that SRP Act, that we have some laws now that allow contract workers that borders on slavery. The state tries to extract out of people desperate for employment the most onerous of terms, and you have no recourse, and they gag them, and they say you can't talk and you can't engage in industrial action. Right now, Solid Waste Management Company Limited is trying to penalize workers for speaking out under the conditions that they're working under. But the Solid Waste Management Company and the Beetham landfill is responsible for cancer and disease spikes in the Beetham and throughout the country. Trinidad is trying to quiet a pandemic of pancreatic and thyroid cancer in Trinidad and Tobago that is directly linked to heavy metals in soil and water and air. Our landfills are not engaged in. If the people in Scotland that Keith Rowley went to speak to in that environmental conference,
you ask it?
If they really knew what Trinidadians put up with, if you go and you do a water quality, air quality, or soil quality test within, say, a mile radius of the Beetham landfill,
so
EMA,
all them people on the Beetham supposed to be
EMA and OSHA
exposed to cancer.
All. When you go and meet people in Beetham, they have the saying in I'm telling you, right? But you go there and you see people and you think they're the 90s and the 100s, they're 45 and 50 years old. The environment is degrading them, teeth falling out their mouths. If you did a proper health sweep across the road from the Beetham dump, they shut the Beetham dump down. And Solid Waste Management Board knows this today. That if the EMA did a proper soil quality, but what the people in Goodwood Park don't know is that the same air and the same dust, when they have a fire in Beetham, you smell it in Westmoreland. What they don't understand is the carcinogens is coming through the air to Westmoreland, and that when they drive past in their car on the road outside the Beetham, because everybody drives past the Beetham to come home, all the dust that collects on the car and the water on your wheels, you're taking it home into your gated community, and that you're putting your family at risk. That we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, all of these things, police officers, prisons officers, I'm going to just tell you these things. Prisons officers write me and tell me, stab-proof vests expired, they can't get. That pair of boots you see that I do that video with, police not giving them boots. They have to go in all these little tactical stores and buy those boots, buy those kits. You could walk in and buy that boots, pair of boots. You don't have to be a police officer to buy it. They're not getting the equipment that they need to do the job, and they can't speak out, and they can't engage in industrial, and the Police Service Association is letting them down. What the government has realized is if you put your people to run these associations and these unions, you could corrupt the process from inside, because you know that these people can't evade the collective bargaining. They can't evade, they can't quit the union and start their own union. They're trapped. And it is unfair. Because the day police or other essential workers in this country reach the point where they can't take no more and they quit the job, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What is happening to garbage workers, sanitation workers in Trinidad and Tobago is criminal. Criminal. Ronald Milford should be before a parliamentary subcommittee to answer for the working conditions. OSHA and EMA should have to go and do proper measurements, but we forget these things. So when a man get a heart attack and had to beg me for help and help me raise funds so he could pay his bills, I have police officers, senior police officers messaging me to tell me about the ways and means that you could get help out. It shouldn't be a help out. You are in a very dangerous job. You should be protected by the conditions, by your job, by your employer.
Precisely.
If the unions and the associations that's supposed to bargain for these people are not representing them, what action could be taken to fix that?
A change in the industrial relations system.
So it still go back to that parliament.
Yeah, and a change in the act.
It's still going back to that parliament.
Mm-hmm. But I said that deadbeat ministers are labor who come from, I don't know where they come from, and don't even understand that that is a critical element of your economy, labor. If you don't fix that, then what you will have is chaos, bacchanal, and confusion.
Is this really a law-abiding country? Are we really governed by laws? And I'm saying this, I know that we have laws for the small man, but do we really have laws? Because that should trigger, there in developed countries and first world countries, conundrums like those would trigger responses and government would step in. I want to segue to the divers in Paria that's going on now. What we're learning, and today the supervisor down at Paria said it is Colin Piper that said do not mount a rescue, the Coast Guard handling it. The Coast Guard was given a different instruction. The Coast Guard was told do not let anybody into the pipe. So they are lying to the state, to the country, to the people.
But listen, that is so much a negligence. I mean, that's so much a loss. But you see, the thing is, to me, that whole thing was a real conjure on the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Because you see, once you do what you did with that commission of inquiry, there's little you could do in terms of bringing people to justice, in terms of charging people, in terms of putting people before the court and that kind of thing. So really and truly, that was just a way, in my opinion, to quiet this whole thing and kill this whole thing, make this thing die a natural death, like everything else they do with commission of inquiries.
Well, I want to tell you this, right? A commission of inquiry is a tool in and of itself. At the end of the inquiry, recommendations are made.
Okay.
The responsibility.
Let's see what happens with this.
The responsibility is for the prosecutorial arm of the state, the Director of Public Prosecutions, to take action. There are other organizations of state.
So all that rich data information that come out, you think they could use that in court?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They now have grounds. What you're trying to say? This is a statute bad thing.
No.
This damages their ability to take other action.
Listen, I think we're wasting time with that.
Or
that could have been easily investigated by safety experts, and we could let the chips fall where they may. Who was responsible in companies? There are companies every day. Companies, the OSH agency put companies in court every day.
In Trinidad?
For less than that, yeah. Every day, I consult for some of these companies. I know.
This is bordering on criminal action.
But criminal, who you saying?
When
but that was criminal action. Apart from all the negligence and the thought and that kind of thing that that emanates from that.
When they're talking about what could have potentially caused the incident or accident, my point remains, there was a responsibility.
Did they find out what caused it?
They're saying that some diaphragm was moved that created the delta P, and that caused them to be sucked into the pipe. I don't know if that is true. That is what I have heard. I do not know if that is true. But what I'm saying to you is, regardless, you now have living beings in a pipe.
So they were,
me and my friends.
So they were outside the pipe.
A fellow named Shiva, who is a friend of mine, he owns apartments in Curab. Shiva called me to say his cat had kittens, and one of the kittens crawled into the cable pipe under the meter box and went underground. And we went there, and I did a live video, and people came from far and wide, and we, using chisels and hilties, we broke the ground and carefully cut the pipe to expose the cable. TNTech saw my video and they came to make sure that we wouldn't put ourselves in danger, and created a place for the kitten to come out. This was for human beings. They thought 5 people were inside there dead. When Christopher Boudram came out and said, the next man behind me, he right there, go for him. That should have been an instant. We were down in Paria. If we didn't have those 40 hours of video, there may not have been all of this, because they would have been able to lie and say that, because they've said things that our video proved was a lie.
So how close you all were to where the actual incident took place?
No, we were on land. We were in Parias car park.
Oh.
We weren't out at sea by the pipe.
Oh, so it was
but everything that had to happen had to start there.
Mm-hmm.
So everything came back to there. All of the information came back to there. And the most incredible information that we got was that the Coast Guard was being cited as the authority that said a rescue couldn't be mounted, when we know for certain the Coast Guard never went in the water. So the Coast Guard did not know. The management of Paria is citing as an authority people who never went to the scene of the accident.
Scapegoats.
So the Coast Guard was told, block anybody from trying. And then the people who would have been responsible for trying were told, you all stand down, Coast Guard gonna handle it. This was a definite...
I wonder if that was deliberate.
But it sounded like it was deliberate. It sounded...
Or if they didn't know what they was doing, and maybe they was just fiddling, trying to find out.
And I keep saying that somebody in the parliament needs to bring a law. There is a law.
But that is not how it works. That's not how it
works.
There
is a law called depraved indifference for human life.
No, but
and
that's not how...
what they should be charged with.
Listen. That's not how it works in real industrial sites. Because real industrial sites, everything you do, every time you go out and see, everything is planned and simulated. In real companies, it's planned and simulated. You know exactly what has to be done. If X happen, you know where Y, Z, and everything is strategic, how it is supposed to happen, and that kind of thing. In real companies,
and you know who's key?
And that is planned.
And you know who's key to the plan? A fellow called the safety officer.
Yeah.
The safety officer is the man that says, use that door, don't use that door. Before you use this door, tape off that door. There's a plan for everything.
So everybody will know where they are.
That there's a valve there's a valve that could start up the engine, lock the valve. The valve is locked, right? So they have these toolkit sessions. They call it that, where they're handing over one shift, handing over.
Yeah, that's what's happened. So this is what I'm trying to figure out what happened there. And even if I mean, we at Commission of Inquiry, listen, that's supposed to be simple. In a real system where it's organized. Where you organize and know everything is, what is supposed to happen, when this happened, what is supposed to happen, when this happened.
The safety officer was supposed to be questioned. The safety officer was supposed to be questioned. Who in your organization is responsible for a rescue in case of an accident?
And where was he?
Jim. Bring Jim to me. Bring Jim. Jim had to tell you, boss, I was ready to mount my rescue, but Piper said no. Bring Piper to me. That's where we were supposed to be. There were companies there. There was a company called Subsea that was training at the Leash Mountain Rescue. Plus, these boys were all divers. This man's children were Michael and Nicholas Kerban are divers. Ronald Ramuta, who came and pulled Christopher Boudram out of the pipe, he was ready to go back. They were ready to lead a team. They got one man out, so they knew. All the thing they're talking about scuba gear and miss me with that nonsense. If you not mounting the rescue, get out the way and let somebody else try. Stephen, they talk about and they gave this clown road about a video to say, look, something blocking the pipe. You know, they could have cut off that piece of pipe in 10 minutes and let it fall to the sea and expose the bottom of the pipe. That's all they needed to do. You didn't have to, if you say it's 4 stories down, go all the way to the bottom of the 4 stories and cut off where you could. So now it's less than 4 stories, you're entering the pipe right there, you're pulling out divers. Go down there with extra tanks, so as they come out, you give them the new breathing apparatus, send them up the road. There were ways to do it. I watch professionals. I watch a man, Suratan, he came there, he spoke on the video. He said he was responsible for Petrotrin's pipes, these pipes for 30 years. He said not only did we never have an accident like this, but we had plans in place for if we did. Where were those plans?
Yeah, real companies. I mean, if you go places like Texas and then you see how they do it, real companies have plans for down to at the last minute what you do. They have a plan. If something happens, people get paid big money for that. Big money for contingency.
But that's what I'm saying to you. I'm saying that to you in that before you go in the water to start to work, they've outlined the whole play-by-play, how it starts and how it ends. And there's a relay of people with responsibilities.
So what happened then?
Where is all of that information? Why didn't the police take Mr. Piper's phone?
Because if they could say,
But
if they
the
say
board-
it doesn't
the
have
board
that, then
need-
somebody had to get locked up.
But exactly.
Somebody had lost. Then people still working there and
Listen,
being
and
paid by
calling the
government
shots.
and being paid by
But
government. Nobody had gone home yet.
The arsonist in charge of the fire scene still.
Boy, listen, China is really a banana republic. You know? Where you this here, accidents in a real company like that happen, and people are home yet.
You use the word accident. Imagine an accident take place on the highway, and the fire truck reach and say, wait,
And we still paying you hundreds
wait,
of
before
thousands of dollars every
we
month.
start to take them out in the car, let's find out how this accident occurred first. That's what the Commission of Inquiry is saying. That's madness. Or we want to take them out of the vehicle, but we need a permit sign. Do you know that they had to wait for a permit to rescue?
So that is to wait until some ministry open the next day or something for that to happen.
But that's what was going on. But the board was meeting since Saturday morning. The board was, and the management, I was calling them. I got through to the board, you know. In some of my...
This happened on Friday.
Friday evening.
Right,
the
well, they
25th.
had to wait for Monday for somewhere to open to get a permit.
You know, you're laughing, eh?
They had to wait for
If
Monday
it,
for
if it
somewhere to
wasn't
open
so
to get
tragic,
that
if it
permit.
wasn't so tragic, but Trinidad and Tobago, I want you to understand this. All of the information, we're getting good, salient information out of the inquiry, and I'm happy for that. But what Stephen Matteson just said is an absolute fact. That this didn't require all of this. It required, at the point of the incident, there should have been a rescue. If there was not a rescue, why? And who was responsible? Those are the important.
Yeah, that's where you start. First, you start with what his safety plan was for this.
Stephen, a man
And
said,
why it didn't happen.
a man who worked in Paris said LMCS was withholding information, but that is crap because I was broadcasting live. I had called Keith Rowley, Faris Al-Rawi. I had called people, all manner of people, to tell them about this going on, and they did not respond. and they did not respond.
Police come for you.
That is true talk. That is the truth of the matter. That there were people who had a responsibility. Stuart Young was there 12 o'clock Saturday morning. Stuart Young was there, and he promised to remove all the stops. But that was another lie. That was another lie.
So all that time the man was alive still, because they was down there for how many days they said they was alive for?
The men were alive. The men were alive until Sunday. The men were alive for the 72 hours.
That's unfortunate.
And that's the truth. And that's the sad reality.
So when Stuart Young and them was down there, in half an hour they could have go down and cut that pipe, and them men could have come out still.
But you didn't need to cut the pipe, eh? I mean, you could have sent divers
So
down
didn't
the
have
pipe.
a way to flush all the pipe.
The pipers are you, underwater. Two risers connected underwater, right? 200 feet or something like that.
200 feet.
So you could have sent men in from both sides. I watch in, I think it's Chile.
But it's like a greasy pole inside there, I understand. It's
But
plenty
all
oil
you're
and
doing
things.
is sending people down with harnesses that
Right.
you could pull them back.
Yeah.
So they grab and they say, pull me up. And you pulling somebody out with you.
Yeah, for real.
When we got that GoPro footage, it wasn't people tangled up inside of there. It was people who were inside there talking. They were alive in the pipe. That's what Bodram came up to say. That Kerban helped me out the pipe. He right there.
So they swam up to the top, or they climb up to pull themselves up or something.
They got out. They worked their way out of the pipe. And that could not have been easy.
Yeah, but that would be a hard, that would
That's
be a
4
massive,
stories. That's a
massive undertaking.
That's a massive undertaking. But the reality that faces us today is that those people are
But they had tanks and thing on them, or there was just an air pockets. I don't understand something I'm missing. How they got in there and without tanks and that kind of thing.
the family that have all the information. One of the nights we were by the Red House, and the owner of LMCS and his wife, they came. But nobody want to talk yet. And I think this commission of inquiry is just a big stall.
Yeah, this commission, I tell you, this commission of inquiry is a fad.
They didn't want anybody to be able...
This is just a way to damper, to kill that whole thing, boy. Trinidadians is forgetting. Trinidad, listen, let me tell you what's going to happen in the next 2 years. You see, next year, the end of next year, it will not be like it is this year. People will be happy.
Serious?
Yeah,
This
people
is your
will be happy.
prediction?
Yeah, that's my prediction.
Miss
boy.
Cleo?
The next election, the next year is election. Right? The next year is election, boy. People, listen, a man, when I was a little boy, a man sing a song, I think it was Penguin. I never forget that song, you know. But it's so, that song actually epitomizes what happens with government in Trinidad and Tobago for election. Doggy look a bone, doggy look a bone. You remember that song, boy? Right now, they're plucking out all your feathers. You're bleeding.
You bring back that song.
Right? You're bleeding. Right? And you see next year, coming to the end of the year, niceness.
I want to tell you
For the
something.
man who does vote. All kind of thing. URP, all kind of thing. All kind of niceness.
Foreign companies who are based in Trinidad, international first world
Why
companies,
you think they put off local government elections?
because they're afraid to lose.
Right?
Because they're afraid to lose.
When
And
they start to run money and do things, they will call our elections. Because Trinidadians, like the fowl, the whose feather they pull out, all the feathers, you're running, you're crying, you're making a certain noise now. But you know something? Next year they're going to throw real corn for you. And you're coming. And they're putting you on the leash and they're pulling you all about Trinidad. You're talking all about Trinidad with your red jersey and your yellow jersey.
I want to tell you this. They don't have enough corn.
They don't have enough corn? Will you feel you could win an election?
I
In Trinidad?
think
With the mentality of Trinidadians?
that we at a place now where Trinidadians understand that the problem, all that we're talking about, the failure of the laws, the failure to get insurance of police officers, we are going to press issues on such a high level that the corn you're talking about, they have to come and give medical insurance to fire service and police service. They can't bring no biscuit in for nurse again.
Boy, they're giving them biscuit. They're giving them crumbs. Crumbs. I telling you, they're not biscuit.
Stephen, I'm telling you right now, the only thing that keeping nurses from working out the hospital is their devotion to their patients.
Listen.
They will quit that job today. They know that they could get on a plane tomorrow and get a 5 times the salary in New York City.
How much are they going to do that?
Brother,
hear what? Let me tell you something. You understand the psychology
you
of Trinidadians yet?
You mustn't do that. You mustn't reinforce negativity. You must speak hope.
No.
You must. That's what the church is good at.
Listen.
That's what you go to church to hear.
Philip, I'm in politics. Philip, the greater part of my life was spent in politics. Greater part of my life, PNM politics as a matter of fact.
Do you know who Susan B. Anthony was? Do you know who Susan B. Anthony?
I heard the name.
Susan B. Anthony was the person who they told for decades that women will never be able to vote. She changed that.
Yeah.
She changed that.
Yeah.
There's a lot about history
Philip, and
that I know. I remember when Barack Obama won that election. I watched the camera focus on Jesse Jackson, who was just crying.
Yeah, because, I mean,
people didn't know, as the strongest politician of African descent in America, how hard that road was that he cut for Barack to win. And I hear you when you say that things have been the way they are in this country for 60 years. And I could easily be as frustrated, and I could easily be demoralized and say Trinidadians really make some stupid decisions. But I want to tell you, it's different now. You see, they don't have enough corn to go and put foundation under all the roads, and all the roads collapsing. They don't have enough corn to fix all the drains, and the whole place flooding, and it's going to get worse.
They don't need that amount of corn.
They don't have enough corn.
Just to get the illusion,
brother,
of it.
You can't give the illusion to bamboo that they place dry, that all that they lost, they didn't lose it. I'm saying to you, the reason they didn't have a local government is that the PNM knows that they've lost. That the only reason Keith Rowley is still the leader of that party is because it is controlled by people who have Keith Rowley on a leash. You see, the bacchanal, that the media that is controlled by those same people want you to believe that Rowley and Padarat fighting, and that's the conversation. That's not the conversation. They don't like social media. They don't like Facebook. They don't like TikTok. They don't like WhatsApp. They don't like Phillip Alexander and all the other people who bring in the information in public space constantly. They vex right now that people know that police officers, who people think is PNM till they're dead, they didn't want people to know that they treat police so bad, or that they treat firemen so bad. They didn't want them to know. They didn't want them to know that the board that they put to run what used to be Petrotrin, destroying it. That Piper and his band are responsible for the deaths of people. Trinidadians are not going to forget that. You didn't move him. You didn't move him. You shut down Petrotrin to cover for your partner with the fake oil. They're not going to forget that. And they have nothing they could do to stop that conversation. They don't have enough corn. And with every single day, it's getting worse in this country. Look at a whole barge sink for heritage. You ever hear the saying, when thing again say even wet brown paper could cut you? That is what's going on with this government. What Trinidadians have to do now is to stand up. You don't have to wait till 2025 for them to bring out their corn. The whole country could stand together right now and say, you know what? That's it. We want a proper country now, or fire yourself. And that is the work that I do, and I will continue to do. I admire you 100% for what you do. I really do admire you. But sometimes I get the impression that you're really pissing anyone. As I said, Jesse Jackson. There's a guy in America, Ralph Nader. You know that name. It is because of him that they have safety rules for the manufacture of vehicles in America. And because they have safety rules for the manufacture of vehicles in America, for Toyota and all the other companies to supply into America, they had to adopt the same safety rules. So it became global safety rules. But it started with one man, Ralph Nader. And I want to say this, that I could be deluding myself that Trinidadians could wake up and realize, wait, now this race politics is not working.
It's bigger than that.
But
bigger than that.
It, of course it's bigger than that.
It's
but
a mafia.
It's an absolute mafia. It's an absolute mafia. But what is
that.
empowering the mafia are two groups in society.
What is
The people who vote in race, and the people who thinking that voting doesn't help.
What?
Those two groups are who empowers that mafia. And if people decide, I don't care what the neighbor on the right and the neighbor on the left doing, I voting and I voting for change. And if everybody put aside race and apathy, we'll get it.
Yeah,
I have people like you.
I
have people like you that if I say, right, we in office, Stephen Matterson, come back with a report, fix the whole industrial relations, the court, everything. What do we need to do? So we tell Trinidad, in 6 months you have a report, we convene the stakeholders, we're going forward. And in every aspect of this country, education, healthcare, public utilities, everything, jobs, national infrastructure, everything could be fixed with a plan and proper people to execute it. And I know that you know that.
Yeah, it could be fixed, but we have to understand the construct, and we have to understand the nature of the bureaucracy, and we have to understand the nature of the constitution, and when that the construct I'm talking about, you have to understand all of that. And once you understand that, you'll understand what has to be done to fix it. The thing is, the mafia, and I'm not talking about any particular group of people, the people who benefits from all the ills, all the things that are not going right in the society, for whatever reason, they include people like me and you too. They don't want it to fix.
And all we need
so
is the 1.4 million.
You might think that mafia is somebody from down Westmoreland or no. That mafia might be a man working URP. And he getting a little kakada. But he's part of that mafia because he feels. Okay,
so you're talking about a culture of wrongdoing.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
That's different than the mafia. The mafia real, and they have a plan for everything. They have a plan for the port, and they have a plan for Wassa. So they run these. They make sure that they use.
They are the mafia at the higher
level. They use politicians to destroy. I want to tell you, our port services in Trinidad and Tobago should be doing $10-15 billion in profit a year. We lose $1 billion a year. Why? Because the state, the government wants it so. The government wants it like that. When we talk about our constituency board of supervisors and having the constituencies run as independent little states, that 41 little states, you think Unicom, Terrace de Alsing, Wife and Laban could come and get a contract to do Arapita Avenue? Only companies within the constituency should be able to get work within the constituency. And only workers from the constituency, not Venezuelans, not Chinese, not Nigerians, people from the constituency who live in the constituency. So the money will move through the economy. Everybody will have a chance at a better life.
That's the next thing for this government. For some reason, they don't understand. That's something that beaten me all the time. You see, and it stems, I always say that, it stems from that statement the Prime Minister make. It ricocheted. It says something, because when you listen to what he says, what he said about rich people getting richer, it is exactly what they're doing. Because when you give poor people money, well, not poor people, when you give public servants and more and the man on the ground more money, you seen what going on for Christmas right now? Nothing happening. You even seen lights.
I was in a Price Mart accidentally on Black Friday.
On
Black Friday. Wait, no, I was there for the Black Friday, and I was just there to get. I can't remember what I was there to get, but I was there. I think it was dog food, but I was in Price Mart, and then I realized, wait, now it's Black Friday. Let me get out of here before the crowds.
Didn't know crowd.
Nobody.
Yeah, I was in Price Mart sometime last week, and I realized, How the place so scanty? Normally, Price Mart will have a lot of people around this time.
Mountain was dead.
Mountain. So what I'm saying is, I mean, people waking up, people, you know, I don't want you conserving, you're spending less something. But the thing is, that is not what makes an economy revolve. What makes an economy revolve is spending.
Absolutely. When you give a big company a $10 million contract, they're paying workers and banking the profit. When you give that $10 million contract to 10 small contractors, that each of those millions of dollars getting spent within the community and making a difference in plenty people's lives.
This is why.
So when Kim Rowley told that nonsense, there's nothing wrong with the rich getting richer.
Yeah, that Reagan and Thatcher kind of
trickle down
economics. I mean, that is long time thing. That works long time rich and poor thing. You know,
let the fat cats eat at the top, and what fall off the table you will eat. What we want and what we propose is a country where everybody gets to eat at the table. And how you do that is by making sure that you judge the performance of the economy by how the poor are doing. It is that matrix that is most important. How the poor are doing is what will turn the economy around. If you move the working poor from $17 an hour to $20 an hour in real wages, and I'm not talking about a minimum wage, and if you attack the cost of living from two sides, if you attack the cost of living from the price point, because this $10 billion that they say that TNTech owing, they have to write that off. They can't put that on the taxpayers. And this generating company that owned by the partners, that's not our debt. Work your business out. National Gas Company is a front for the hole in the ground that taking out the gas that I own. Stop privatizing things and pocketing the money and banking it in Liechtenstein and London and Luxembourg. We want our companies back. Our natural gas that runs our turbines, it's free. It bubbles out the ground so much that we used to burn it. We used to flare it in Petrotrin. The natural gas should be free. We should be at 100%. That should be our goal, 100% renewables. Do you know that the biggest Honeywell is the biggest wind farm manufacturer in the world? Honeywell approached two governments in this country and left Trinidad because of corruption. Honeywell approached to do on our east coast, Manzanilla, Mayara to Toko, wind farms in the sea. And that would have generated free electricity for Trinidad and Tobago and give them the ability to sell electricity up the islands. Trinidadians do not understand that life in Trinidad is hard because the government wanted so. Hadco, Amco, Massey and all the food importers don't want you growing food. They don't want the market selling mango $5 for $1 again, but you could get it back $5 for $1. If we plant 250,000 breadfruit trees in Chagaramas, we able to feed everybody in this country. And breadfruit flour processing could be a thing because wheat flour is taste added. Plenty people don't know it's the same corn that they extrude to make dog food, they extrude to make corn flakes, they extrude to make corn curls. One sweet, one salty, and one for the dog. It's the same raw material. And you could flavor breadfruit flour to taste exactly because they're doing that with cassava flour now. We could fix all of it. We could fix all of it. The solution to our flooding is the solution to our drought. Capture, hold, treat, distribute. Capture the water in the constituency falling in. That would prevent the flooding. And then treat and distribute it to when we're in drought. This is simple maths. Even a fool could understand. Even the 41 in Parliament could understand.
Problem is you either get to the 41 or you have to be part of the 41. But the majority.
The people have to say that. The people have to say that they want education for their children, because if we could do prestige education in Fatima and Holy Name and Presentation College, we could do it in Mokorapo and Tranquility and everywhere else. We could, because it is the same Ministry of Education, it is supposed to be the same curriculum, it's supposed to be the same teachers training college, training them teachers, it's supposed to be the same funding. So tell me what's going on between Fatima and Mokorapo. They are across from each other. Explain to me why one failing and one is a prestige school. Trinidadians have to understand that there is a double standard and an uneven play field with generating management and workers. And that's not the function of government. Government's job is to create and hope and opportunity for everybody and let the market take care of itself.
Mm-hmm. So once you start to put your hand on the scale on the market, then everything will go haywire.
90,000 acres of land, fertile farmland available to us. 30,000 farmers looking for land to farm. And we not food self-sufficient as yet. They in government since what, 7 years now?
Mm-hmm.
7 years. Kamla
8 years.
Kamla come to office tell us about she bundled bhaji and bodi, but she ain't plant no bhaji and bodi while she was there.
Mm-hmm.
Trinidadians have to understand that it is the same people that financing both.
Same people that financing both. You see that statement they make there? That is so, can you read it? The same people that financing both.
And you have to,
They given here and they given here, same time.
But you have the power to make all the difference. You have the power to make it work. You have the power, because when we tell you, the money that being spent on national security could be spent making housing, first-time homeowners, zero deposit, zero interest, up to $1.5 million, interest free. So that even minimum wage earners right now, husband and wife, you could be living in $1 million house, paying $500 a month mortgage. That's possible. That's doable. Where that money coming from? Stop the theft. Stop the corruption. Finance at the level of the constituency. Make sure that it is accountable. The Auditor General, what's their job? The Solicitor General, what's their job? We're spending money on nonsense. Right now, the biggest racket in this country is legal briefs. People becoming multi-millionaires on legal briefs. Win case, you get paid. Lose case, you get paid. Come back and fight the same case 3 times and get paid. That is racket and bacchanal. And lawyers don't want to talk about it because lawyers stand up there with a plate and their hand open. Feed me too.
Not all.
Not all.
Not all is good.
Not all, but Trinidadians need to stand up. Trinidadians, you cannot tell yourself that the responsibility is not yours. Because whether you voted or you didn't vote, you put that in office. And you have the power by your finger to change that. We have options. We have real political options. People who have demonstrated the knowledge to fix it, have shown the time and the commitment to fix it, have hit the road. Vernon de Lima on the phone with me last time we talk. He said, yeah, now Phillip will fix it. We outside there. I tell him, I say, we in Maruga one weekend, the next weekend, the sun rise on me in St. Madeleine Pond, we cleaning up lilies that blocking the surface of the water. We've been out there, so we've proven, and now I'm getting messages saying, brother, all of a sudden I seen my MP. I never seen my MP before. MP want to come and fix too.
Well, when you ever seen when just before Rainfly died, there's grow wings. The thing is, what that means is that they start preparing already. I'm sure they don't get the attack in Bali's house. They start preparing as soon as this election thing's done. They're going to start to prepare for local government elections.
What election? They lost. Keith Rowley ran against himself and lost. He got less people to come out in Diego Martin West this time than the last time. You tell, I am hearing about people getting $600 on a food card to come out and vote, and you only get 9,000 people. Every day the media put a different number, like they was finding people hiding.
I wasn't even following how much car I can get.
Beats me. Who cared? Nobody expected it to be anything. It was a distinction without a difference. The PNM went.
So about 3 or 4 days for the election for 9,000 people.
For 9,000 people. India has put 1.4 billion people to vote in 24 hours, but we, PNM,
America has voted almost 200.
World's largest democracy. People. The PNM is good at one thing and one thing only: racket. Well, then 2 things. But that's the truth. And you have to understand that it is a small group of people. It looks big because of the parasites and the prostitutes that hanging on for their share. But it is a small group of people that is looting the country, and you have the ability to become a bigger group of people. Just you, your family, your friends, your co-workers, your colleagues. Talk the talk. They're hearing you.
That small group of looting the country had tentacles, brother.
Matterson, they're hearing the people talking. They're hearing them talking. The media has become irrelevant. The people of Trinidad and Tobago talking the talk. They're talking to one another. They say they ignore what you're seeing. Because as much as they don't want it to happen, we put in information out there and it's going viral. And the public sharing that information. When the Guardian put out an article and get 92 likes, I comment on it and get 400 likes. It means that the people are looking for the truth. They're no longer accepting what you prepackage and give me. I tell you that night, you and my brother, when Faris Al-Rawi tell the nation about furlough. Remember that? Furlough. The public servants. Take your job off furlough. We tell you, huh? You see you in court, brother. And the government back down. Every single time we've ever stood up, they've backed down. How come you all haven't learned that yet? How come you're not realizing that what you're supposed to do is stand together? Stand up. Stand up for the cause, for the country, for yourself, for your children, for a better life, for the future. We can make this place paradise again. Anyway, you have anything we need to address?
No,
bring it to a wrap.
Yeah.
Next week, we are inviting heads of associations and union leaders. We're going to put them on the hot seat. They are going to have to start. And you know who I want? I want to see the talking head from Communication Workers Union, who's sitting down quiet while they're looting out TSTT and B-Mobile. Come and sit down and talk. Let the workers hear you. Where's Ansel Roger? Come, explain to the people why the government was able to shut down Petrotrain and not a dog in OWTU back. Come and tell them. Right now, Trinidad and Tobago is a mess. And the people who are responsible for running the country, Stephen Matheson said it and he's correct. People are frustrated and depressed and you're seeing it in their job performance. Give those same people parity, equity. Give those same people a proper working condition and something to aspire to. And you go in that same licensing office and they're dealing with you in 15 minutes and you're going home. Yes or no? Once people happy where they're working, they will work well. And that's the truth. So let us make that happen. Let us create a country where the people are treated with dignity and respect. We want to make your list: first world, developed, literate, renewable energy, food self-sufficient. Those are real attainable goals. Trinidad has a $60 billion budget, $30 billion out of it is theft. If they did a commission of inquiry into the renovation of the Red House, they would jail government ministers.
And the next 20 billion is recurrent expenditure, and then the rest is
transfers and subsidies. You know, transfers and subsidies. High class way of saying graft. High class way of saying I will buy your vote. The corn he talking about, transfers and subsidies. Let the Ministry of Health explain where that $5 billion goes every year. Now. Let the Ministry of Education, you get $5 billion every year. Even for the 2 years that they had a pandemic and the schools were shut. Where are money? What do you spend it on? That's the kind of questions we have to be asking. You should not have a Minister of Finance able to stand up in the Parliament and talk this year's budget without accounting for last year's budget. But we don't do that. And neither the PNM nor the UNC have a vested interest in accountability because both of them hands in the cookie jar. So we need to fix that. They have members of Parliament who paying people as employees who just down their name down on paper, they getting the government salary and kicking back to the member of Parliament. That is the level of theft in this country. We need to fix it. We need to fix it, and the way we're going to fix it is 1.4 million of us standing together, brave, bold, and strong. That's how we will fix it. We will change everything because everything they bring up, we show you that there's a way to fix it. And we give you a plan, we give you measurables, we give you metrics, we give you the timelines for deliverables. Let them come and argue. Don't let them hide us from mainstream media that dying, they can't get advertisers, they're bussing, they're telling you that the whole of Guardian media,
only advertise it yourself.
They're before tax. The before tax profit was $1 million. Your tax is about $5 million. You lost. Tell people the truth.
Advertising Omega and yourself.
I watched Synergy TV this morning. A man messaged me and said, Gary, they're talking about your video. Go and watch it. And I watch it. It's a set of small little companies that's spending $200 and $300 for advertising that holding up Synergy TV. Not one big company, not one bank, not one B-Mobile, not one.
Everybody go on social media.
Everybody go on social media.
Because that's where the people who the consumers.
But the same Synergy TV, 90% of their audience is on social media.
Yeah, that's where the people who buy things are. I buy everything off my phone.
It's changing. Don't let it leave you behind. It is changing. The world is changing. We have the opportunity to create a better life for ourselves and our future, our children, our grandchildren. We can make this world a better place than we met it. We can make this country, Trinidad and Tobago, could be paradise on earth, as David Rudder say. Paradise on earth convincingly. It's all in your hands. It's up to you. Stand up. You could talk it. Say good night to Stephen Matheson. Give me your closing comments.
Yeah, well, today was a good a day for the return, and I look forward to sitting with some of those union folks next week.
That's going to be an interesting show. I wonder how they will feel having you across the table.
I go drink the We in the rum shop.
Anybody who wants to be a part of the rum shop talk experience,
We in the rum
you
shop.
can call Indira at 702 Phillip PHIL.
We in the rum shop.
A number that spells rum or shop. But anyway, that is the
We
code
in
that
the
you
rum
use.
shop.
Indira, you can call on 702 Phillip.
So bring the rum, bring it come in the rum
So
shop.
call Indira and say what you would like to contribute, what you would like to see, how you would like to come on board. Advertisers, this show gets a big following. Last week's show we had about 15,000 views. Oh, that was 2 weeks ago. I'm not sure what this show gonna do because we just back today and we didn't advertise it. But when this show is up and running, we make big numbers. Come on board, advertising it. Not expensive at all. Reach out to Indira, 702 Phil or Felicia, 769-4590. It was an absolute pleasure being on the Rum Shop Talk again after the 2-week hiatus, and look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, stay safe.
I go drink the We in the rum shop. We in the rum shop. We in the rum shop. We in the rum shop.